It's March and spring and I am so ready for it. So I'm going to do some more daffodils, which I love. I love the colour of it. I've just printed this out and I'm ignoring the text for now. That's for another project. But I just want to use this template of some daffodils, which I created using images from Canva. And I'm going to use some of the sticky back plastic and I'm going to cover, well, I'm not covering, I'm just going to lay over the top of the image with the sticky side facing up once I can get this backing tape off. So I'm just laying that over the top. So the sticky side is facing up to me and I'm going to use some sellotape or sticky tape to hold that down onto the piece of paper and the mat so that it doesn't keep slipping around. I got this 3-pack of 2mm flat bezel wires and I got that from Amazon. It comes in silver, gold and rose gold. And I think I'm going to use this gold for this project. And I'm going to try and trace the shape using the wire and lay it down on top of the plastic sheet to create the outline of the daffodils. And then I can fill that with coloured UV resin. So I'm just going to snip these zip ties. It's held together with 3 zip ties. But I'm going to leave one on there and that way hopefully it will keep it together and a little bit more organised. Now I'm going to try and lay down my wire and start to follow the outlines of the daffodils of the template. I'm hoping that this will be sticky enough to hold it upright on the very narrow edge. It's nice and bendable, so the roll's stuck on the edge here. I think it's probably going to be easier for me to snip a little bit of the wire off and then I don't have to worry about that piece sticking. And now I can follow the shape and bend it. You can see it's easy to bend with my fingers, but I don't want to twist it. I do want to keep it upright. It was a pretty slow process, so I've sped this up a little bit for you to see. I just kept following as many of the lines, bending the wire around, and it seemed to stick pretty well to the plastic. So I used up as much of this piece until I came to an edge, and then I snipped that wire off before joining another piece. So I had the first piece in place and it was sticking really well. It was much easier just to cut pieces of the wire and manipulate that into shape. I followed roughly the lines. I wasn't following it exactly. I was using the template really as a guide. It was much easier to work with the small pieces, although it did mean that I was going to have a lot more joins to seal. It was a little more difficult trying to get roughly the right amount. I didn't want to end up having lots of tiny little pieces. As you can see, I'm cutting off here. So trying to judge how much you would need for an area was a little bit more difficult, but that was something that I found as I progressed that I became much more efficient at. I continued to work my way around, joining the petals onto that centre trumpet. And although the wire was quite malleable, I found it really difficult to get the sharp points on the petals, so a lot of them tended to be more rounded. Pushing it with my fingers or even my thumbnails was not working. I'd recommend using some type of plier to help create the shapes. I'm not going to film this entire process because it was quite lengthy, but I will leave you with some music as I speed through this little bit.
The frost retreats beneath the dawn. Emerald fields begin to yawn. Whispers carried on the breeze promise life among the trees. Soft rain weaves a gentle dance. Petals open by chance. Bird song fills the warming air. Hope and wonder everywhere. Feel the earth begin to wake. Every step, new paths we take. In the light of morning's grace, new beginnings we embrace.
I used some Resin UV bonding resin, and I applied some with a stick to the corners and the joins, then used the torch that came in the kit to cure it.
Nature's symphony begun. Tender shoots break through the ground. Life returning all around. Beneath the sun's embrace so kind. Frozen echoes left behind. Awaken to the cold. Springtime whispers to us all. Feel the earth begin to wake. Every step, new paths we take. In the light of morning's grace, new beginnings we embrace. The frost retreats beneath the dawn. Emerald fields begin to yawn. Whispers carried on the breeze promise life among the trees. Soft rain weaves a gentle dance. Petals open by chance. Bird song fills the warming air. Hope and wonder everywhere. Feel the earth begin to wake. Every step, new paths we take. In the light of morning's grace, new beginnings we embrace. Streams that once were silent hum. Nature's symphony begun. Tender shoots break through the ground. Life returning all around. Beneath the sun's embrace so kind. Frozen echoes left behind. Awaken to the cold. Springtime whispers to us all.
I finally fitted the last piece together and bonded it, and I'm not going to lie, this took a long time. But I'm ready now to fill it with the resin. I've already got a bit of yellow UV resin mixed up from my last video, so I'm just going to add a little bit more of the JDiction's UV resin, and then I'll put a little bit more colour in there and make sure that I mix it in really well so that there are no lumps or bits of powder. And because I've added some bubbles by stirring that, I used my heat gun to heat it up, helping to pop the bubbles and also make it a little bit more liquid. And I gave that a stir and then heated it again just to make sure that everything was thoroughly liquid and heated. Then I let it sit for a few minutes to cool down. Then I used my silicone tool to start filling them. I only put a thin layer in the bottom of the petals, and I did 2 at a time before curing them. I wanted to make sure that they weren't leaking. Once I'd filled all the petals, I added a little bit more resin to my pot, mixed it in, and I poured it into a pot in which I had some mica that had dried out. I'm going to use that later. I added a dot of orange pigment, just one dot, and mixed that in. Now I can fill in the centre trumpets. Again, curing as I go to prevent leaking. Once I'd finished the centres, I added a little bit more clear resin to my pot, and then I put in some more of the yellow mica to lighten the colour and give me some colour variations. And again, I used the silicone tool to help fill the space, making sure that I got all the way to the edges. This time I filled all 3 areas at once before curing because they were surrounded by resin and I wasn't frightened of them leaking. Next, I filled in the stems with some green. It was a little bit more tricky to get the resin in here because spaces were very small and tight. The last area to fill was the leaves, so I added a little bit more resin and I wanted to change the colour a little bit, so I mixed in the remainder of the orange from the trumpets, just to give me a lighter green, and then I filled in the leaf areas. I'm using some low viscosity resin to fill up the rest of the bezel. This will give it a glossy surface and also make sure that it's strong. Once the whole of the top coat was finished, it was time to take off the plastic. I lay the piece flat to the table and held it down while I removed the sticky tape. This prevented it from twisting and buckling and potentially breaking. I've got a scrap of wood and I've made sure that I can actually want to cut a slot in it, but I made sure that it will be deep enough for me to slide that in there. So I've measured how far across this is, roughly 2 centimeters, and that's why I found the center and I've made a mark 2 centimeters along. So now I need to measure how deep that is. If you've got some digital calipers, that's probably better. I don't. I would say that's about probably about 3 centimeters. So I'm going to make this 4, not centimeters, millimeters. There is a difference. So I'm going to try and make mine 4. So if I put that about 2, I think that's 2. Let me choose a different one because it's hard to see what I'm doing. So that's the mark for 3. So if I put it on 3.2, then I can make a mark here. Oh, I've got a pencil. I can make a mark at the 3.4 and on the 3 line, and that will give me my depth here. So again, do the same thing, pop it on the 3.2, and then that gives me a depth of 4 millimeters, which should be enough for me to fit that in, and then I can glue it in, and I'm also going to put some resin in there as well. So I just want to carve out this little area. So I'm going to carve that area out, and I'm going to use a Dremel. So I will drill some holes and then hopefully use I don't know, a sanding block or something. I don't know if I've got a cutting bit, but I'll have a look. So let me get that all set up and then I can come back and do this. I've sped this bit up and removed the sound because it sounded too much like a dentist and I don't want to trigger anybody. I used a drill bit with the pen attachment on my Dremel and just made some holes and carved out a slot. It wasn't particularly pretty, but I did manage to get it deep enough so that the daffodils could stand and be supported. Finished cutting that now, and that can slot into there. And it does stand up, but I want to give it some added support. So I'm going to pop a little bit of the B7000 glue into the bottom. And then hopefully that will, over time, set. To keep this upright, I'm going to use some of this UV bonding resin and the little torch to set that. So let me open that up. And then pop that in place. I didn't get it quite straight. It is slightly twisted, unfortunately, but it was not an easy thing to do. I'm putting a drop of the resin down the side, holding that as straight as I possibly can, and then I will set that. This sets in about 5 seconds. Make sure that I've got it, the light angled right down inside there. And that should hold it in place while that B7000 glue goes off. And the combination really should make this quite sturdy. Thinking if I can get some down the back here. I'm going to tilt that a little bit. And then I can again do that. Now I want to wax this piece, and I've waited until I've done this just in case the wax interfered in any way with me gluing this in. So I'll go ahead and do that afterwards. I'm going to pop this in the sun now and let that continue to cure and let the glue go off. There is my piece, and I will show you photographs once I've got it all waxed and is completely set. And here it is. I'm going to give them to my mum because we've got Mother's Day coming up and we have a bit of a tradition of me giving her flowers. I think these fit the bill. They're also her favourite colour. If you've liked this video, please give me a thumbs up, comment, subscribe and share, and come back and see what I'm going to make next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.